On this episode of Hidden Happy Valley, we're going to look at the Mountaintop's heritage with Zach. Hey Zach.
How's it going, guys?
Zach? Good.
Nice to meet both of
Good
you.
to see you. Looking forward to looking around, so appreciate your time. Zach, can you tell us about the David House and how it became the Heritage Museum?
This house was built by Lehigh Valley Coal Company, who controlled a lot of properties and lands up here. And eventually it was bought by Vivian David's, I believe, her father. And he actually bought the home. He was a telegraph operator for Lehigh Valley at one point. And he bought the house and he started his own coal company. And she lived here. This was her homestead. And eventually she made a deal with a gentleman up here by the name of Bill Hall, who started the museum through the Lions Club at one point. And the deal was they started a trust, preserve all the Mountaintop history, and in doing so, she donated her home to the community.
You're keeping history alive, that's pretty awesome. What's this here?
So they have their vertical heights,
Mm-hmm.
and it's their minutes and everything. I think it's how they determine what graduation they follow. Because then they had horizontal corrections, and it's glued onto a shingle.
Wow.
I found that in my past
That's
basement,
awesome.
along with all these maps.
Right. That's awesome. You kept them and now you have them. Carrying on
Yeah.
the legacy. So I see you have a map of Slovakia here.
Yeah.
That's cool. So a lot of the,
In honor of our
your heritage. A lot of folks come from this area. Ended up working here, living here.
This is all hand drawn on blueprint paper, so it's lucky it's even here today.
Right.
Now this is actually a different draftsman than later maps.
1892. Coal Tipple Snowshoe Division.
Then you can see there's a kid in there. He's not very old.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, he's got his lamp on. Got your mine mule. That is a small hole.
Yeah, just big enough for the mule to stand up.
Water reacts with the carbide.
It makes a flammable gas that burns filthy. And you just
Tell us about this lamp.
This is a carbide lamp. Basically all you do is you take a rock of carbide, which is mined, and you put it in the base, and technically you put water in the top half of this, which has a little cap, and there's an adjusting rod in there how much water you actually want to react with the carbide. And inside there's a little tube that comes out, and that's where it feeds your gas that is made from that reaction. And on the side you just have this little spark.
Okay, there's the spark. Okay.
So you'd have a lot of issues with open flame.
Right.
And eventually they did, I don't remember exactly what company came out with the safety lantern.
Right.
And it had a flame, but it was enclosed inside a globe, so it wasn't exactly an open flame.
Right. Made it a little safer.
In an article I read in Snowshoe Times, I think it was 1912, Pennsylvania Railroad inspector who was in charge of inspecting all rail lines in the state. He was coming up here to inspect Bellefonte Snowshoe Railroad's trestles, and he went underneath the trestle and it was too short and took his smokestack off his train.
Jeez. Oof.
That was on the front page. That was the biggest news of the week.
Yeah. We're standing at the site of the Beech Creek Trestle for the Bellefonte Snowshoe Railroad and what remains of it.
Oh, it's really hard to tell now. We're Interstate 80, and they built a base for it. There's
Yeah.
actually a rock arch bridge across Beech Creek.
Oh,
And
nice.
When they put the interstate in.
They took that out.
Because then, like I said, 144 shifted this way a lot farther than they had to cut sections out.
Yeah.
Probably made it shorter, but
Right. Not the original, for sure.
no.
Yeah.
History lost to progress.
Yeah. So people came along, they took whatever they could find.
They got it, yeah.
And when they tore this one down, I do believe they scrapped this trestle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the iron.
Yeah.
Path of least resistance for a lot of, unfortunately, is the fate of a lot of history.
And that was built in 1858, 59 era.
Yeah.
And you'll see on the one we're walking to, the left side of it's falling down and this side's falling down. So my guess is when the trestle collapsed, it pulled
Pulled some of that off.
Yeah.
You said this is the embankment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go down here to the other one, and the footers are still left.
Okay.
Where they would have built the wood up from.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what this one was here.
No one's putting new trestle in here.
No, not anytime soon. I don't think.
Wow. I know at first they just were hauling coal and stuff like that, but then so that's pretty early for passengers too. That's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That article that's in 1879. That was it. This area was really common for like sightseeing.
Yeah, recreation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's the
Oh,
other
wow.
side of the
That's super
embankment.
cool.
Yep.
65 feet at a high point.
Shoosh.
65 feet train car. And
Could be way up over it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the beams probably were 8 by 8, 10 by 10s. Left side of that, the rock on top would have been the top pier,
Mm-hmm.
and that left side gave way quite a bit. So the train, when it collapsed, it was actually on that end. It didn't make it very far on the trestle before it gave way. And in the picture, you can see the car and roughly the locomotive sitting down there. There was, of course, a tender car behind it, and it collapsed. And there's a picture of a group of gentlemen sitting on top of this looking across.
There he is. How's it look up there?
It's pretty high up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what'd you find?
This is iron.
Fairly old looking one too. How the holes
Yeah.
are the same,
Yeah, true.
and how
That's custom.
the more modern ones
handmade.
have the ridge in the center to make them more rigid.
It's an old one. So that's
Wow.
an oldie.
It's for the museum.
So during the day, miners they'd be digging for Lehigh Valley, Berwyn and White, or another company. Clarence Gold Company was another one. And to heat their homes at night, they would go and dig their own mines, their personal ones. They weren't near as large as a full-scale mine, and they would scab off the property they were working for, Lehigh Valley or Berwyn and White, or they'd find somewhere else.
Did those companies care about bootleg mines?
I've never really heard of recorded, repercussions of what they did, but I imagine they weren't happy about it. But in such small quantities, to them, that was nothing. We still had a tipple up until a couple years ago, and the state deemed it unsafe, so they bulldozed it out. The tipple's it was a wooden structure, half dirt, half wood, and it'd have tracks in it. And they'd take their coal cars out and dump them into a rail car that was parked underneath. It's kind of like a dock on a lake, say, but a lot of room underneath to pull cars through and fill them up. If you'd walk straight back here, there's probably an embankment that's 30, 40 feet tall. Probably most miners too, they would have a farm, of course. So this was probably the farmhouse, and then they mined in the surrounding areas. Cool. You'll find a lot what we call bony, which is coal that doesn't burn.
Okay.
It smolders more than it does burn, and it doesn't burn properly. It has a lot of shale content in it.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of places, they would build with it and make things out of it.
This is what you wanted, right? An adventure.
Well. It's fairly deep one, too.
Recently they tore this out.
This is
Fairly recent.
4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, very recent. Oh.
And originally it came out square, and it came out there pretty far, probably where that pine tree is. And there was just logs sticking out after that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the shale front, because they built the frame and they buried dirt in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was here for a long time. I don't remember what year it was built.
How far out did it go?
It would have went on the other side of the track.
All the way over to the other side
Yeah.
and then just stop.
Yeah, not very far.
Yeah.
Which, in reality, was probably
That'd be pretty
60,
far.
70 feet. It was all enclosed the whole way out. This section probably just been flat. And as it narrows, they would actually have railroad ties, and that's what their rails would sit on.
Okay.
Then usually, when they dug out like this, loose stuff that was on top, they probably just bring it all down in so they don't have to use more lumber to get in. And so if the seam was 2 foot tall, that shaft might only be 2 foot tall.
Okay.
And going in, it's a shame that there's really not any more of this style mine open.
Right.
The nearest one was Patton, PA, the Seldom Seen coal mine, but I think they closed it now.
Just coal mining in general, like what was the life of a coal miner, or this kind of a mine?
Get up before daylight and walk to work most of the time, because most miners, they didn't have their own equipment. They had their picks and shovels maybe, but they didn't have horses, a lot of them, or if they did, they had to stay on the farm to work during the day. So then work all day underground. Might come out during the day. You might not be the one hauling coal out of there. It could be someone else. You could be underground all day. And most lunch boxes they had a compartment at the bottom they'd put water in, drink all day. And then they could come back out for water or whatever else they needed. But then you go home and it might be dark when you're leaving, and you might go home and farm yourself. Or go home and dig your own mine to heat your house because you can't afford the company's coal. And day in and day out, pretty much the only day I'd imagine they had off was Sunday.
Right.
And even then, they're probably out working then too.
Yeah, it's just amazing that this isolated place, and this isolated place in Center County, is bringing in people from Central Europe. But it's it's the coal mining culture and the labor force at the time, America at the time.
Yeah.
And also just the idea of the American dream, maybe wanting to come over here in general and willing to work and start in a coal mine, and then go from there.
So Zach, why is preserving history so significant up here on the mountaintop?
Well, it seems like mountaintop history, especially, we get forgotten since we're in the northern part of Center County. We're in the outskirts. This is still almost the wilderness, and people seem to forget what happened here. And what happened here was vitally important, not for only the county, the state, the nation, really. Without our coal, without the railroads, this whole place might have been totally different. And it's important not to forget anything that's happened here.
Totally agree.
Well, you're doing a good job of preserving the heritage here. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming.
Yes, we'll certainly be back.